Welcome to Midnight Cry. My name is Michael York and I am your host. Today we're looking at some very important topics. Islam and its relationship to things like justice, truth and peace. These are really important words for us to talk about, and I want to welcome Dr. Daniel Shayesteh, who's going to help us with that task.
So wonderful to be with you again.
Daniel comes to us with an Islamic background, a follower of Jesus and an Islamic scholar, and I'm sure he'll be able to help us with looking through the questions that we want to talk about tonight. Can Islam lead the world to justice, truth and peace?
There are many Muslims sincerely believe that Islam can lead people to justice, truth and peace. But my conviction is that they do not look at the nature of God. The Quran says in chapter 8, verse 30, that Allah is the best of deceivers. I mean, if you raise a simple question, you say, look, there is someone who is the best of deceivers. Just forget about Allah, I mean about someone. Can that person really be a role model for taking, people to justice and peace and truth? And the response is no. I mean, it's that's very normal that people answer no. So things like this in the Quran is just shocks you that they are coming side by justice, righteousness, and truth and peace. I mean, there were some Muslim scholars confused, really. They said, they actually questioned, they said, maybe questioning in a positive way, they said, we don't know really what justice is. If Allah is the creator of evil, the creator of bad, and creator of sin, and the creator of corruption, and every good and bad is coming from Allah. So then what is justice? Yes. Because justice rejects the duality, God is good perfectly. There is no any essence of bad in the nature of God, true God.
It's the foundation for justice, isn't it?
Absolutely, you're right. So that God, who is the source of absolute justice and truth and peace, He cannot create, injustice, sin, and corruption. So these many Muslims who are believing, and even some of them are ready to put their life for Islam, they really do not understand that the nature of Allah, the creation of Allah, doesn't go at all with justice and peace and truth. The very example, very practical thing that I can give you, and Muslim also in the world, and those who are hearing us can ponder on it and think about it, is this. If really Allah is the one can take to truth, then why He is not taking Muslims here in truth, so Muslims can say, I am established in truth. I am with God, united with God. I do not have any link with Satan. I do not have any concern about, hell and the life after. We see that what really they are speaking does not match with their doctrine.
Yes.
The doctrine of Islam is not able to establish the truth here, because if truth is established here, then you are spiritually united with God. You can say, I am saved. Now I am with God, I am saved. Satan is not with me. My relationship with hell for eternity is cancelled. That's what Christians claim, and they proclaim every day in their life. And as I mentioned, it is not easy to accept it. It's hard to accept that the one who is the creator of sin created tools that Satan is using them, and that God creates peace among people. If you're really a peaceful God, why did you corrupt Satan? Why did you corrupt people by creating them sinner? if you really want to corrupt someone, therefore you will not be able to establish your peace in that person, because you have established your corruption in that.
Yes.
And also you're not a good model for peace. So that's why that many Muslims in the world, and in their discussion with you and different people, they say, yeah, Islam is the one takes to truth and peace. But doctrinally, if you look at the nature of Allah, to his leadership and the things he is, it doesn't make sense at all.
Well, thank you for giving us those insights, Daniel, about Islam in relationship to those words.
It's a pleasure.
I think it's interesting to look at Muhammad as how he exhibits some of the things you were just talking about then. Does he have more privileges compared to others of his followers? Absolutely.
If you read every Islamic book, his life biography and hadith, various Islamic traditions, and the Quran, you see that he is number one in everything. In his rights, he is above others. For example, one of them is that nobody is able to believe that he can advise Muhammad. He can speak beyond the words of Muhammad. That's the only privilege for him, to speak everything. And he has authority to speak in the life of everybody about the truth, about the rights of every person. But nobody has right to speak beyond his words. So this is, unfortunately, it's called spiritual. I do not call it spiritual. Spirituality it makes you humble. You give away many of your rights. He has more wives than his peers, and Quran sanctions that every Muslim can have 4 full-time wives. Till the end of your life. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you're going to have only 4 wives. If one dies, you can again make it 4, or you can divorce and make it another, again 4. But we see that Muhammad even didn't follow that. He had many wives, legal wives, and lived until the end of his life with him.
So we'd say that was unfair, that it would cause conflict, that there wasn't just one truth for everybody. There was sort of different privileges for different people. What kind of problems does that cause?
Many problems, many political, social, moral problems. We see one of the reasons that in Islamic countries people are not able to criticize their leaders is coming from there. Because Muhammad said that if anyone is leading in my place, and he said even no matter righteous or unrighteous, everybody must fully follow him. So imagine there is a unrighteous person is ruling there, and because Muhammad has appointed him, nobody has right. Or the guy is claiming that he is sitting in the place of Muhammad, like Ayatollah Khomeini did, and his close friends introduced him in that way to people, and nobody was able to criticize him. Even in a nice way. That was my death sentence. That in a nice way, I said, even we are here, we have. Brought the revolution to this stage, to build this country. Even our leader does a mistake. We need to kindly remind him. So I got a death sentence. Mistake? A leader does mistake. So you see what kind of political and social chaos that authoritarianism is causing.
And it starts right back with Allah and deception, and then Muhammad and his superiority and privileges over other people. How does this then affect the Islamic family?
It is, you see, the relationship between Allah and his followers is the relationship of master and a slave. He is master, you're a slave. There is no an intimate relationship between master and a slave. And I know that, and history proves that. It is not like in Christianity, you call God your father, that intimate relationship. I am his daughter, I am his son, Christians can proclaim it. And therefore, there is no intimate relationship between Allah and Muhammad,
yes.
because his master is a slave. And then anyone who is a vicegerent sitting in the place of Allah to rule in the midst of people, his relationship with the follower is the same. And that's one reason Quran says you do not question the authority of Muhammad, because he is sitting in the place of Allah. He is master, you're a slave.
Yes.
You know, that comes, you know, you learn a lot of values from your leader. It so matters really who your leader is. If your leader is authoritarian and you're full-heartedly following him, then you become authoritarian
Yes.
in your relationship with your spouse and with your children. And we see that intimate relationship in Islamic family does not exist. I mean, a man can have 4 wives and as many as concubine, or you can have many a slave, you know, girls, sexually you can use that. You see, practically, how can you define that as love between a man and many other wives? The history has proven, and the logic really stands behind that. Really, a sincere love can be practiced only between one man and one woman. And this is not in Islamic country. I'm not saying that all Muslims have more than one wife. But I'm saying this, if it matters really who is leading you, if Allah is leading you with such a characteristic, and Muhammad is leading you with such an authority, it will be impossible for you to have a sincere relationship in your family, between you and your children, and your you know, spouses. So that's why it affecting the Islamic society very much. So that's why it matters for us really to search and find the best value, and to you know, get these values into our lives, and to have a joyful relationship in every matter of our life.
Yes. All these things you've been sharing, Daniel, must have quite an impact on women in an Islamic family. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, Quran speaks very clearly that women are not in the same rank men are, and they are not equal with them, and the husbands are superior than their wives, and husbands can beat their wives if you know, they say no to their husbands. You know, if husband calls them and they are very busy even in kitchen, and they say no, and they get punishment, and that's written in Islamic books, and even in the Quran we see that in chapter 4 verse 15 says, if your wife is caught in immorality, if you have got witnesses for in this regard, you can lock her in the room until she dies. But for the same problem, for the same immorality, if man is caught, he just gets a slash. You know, we understand these differences. Or wives gets, you know, half of the portion of inheritance, or girls and brothers gets one full, or 2 witnesses of 2 women is equal to the witness of 1 man. All of this you see that, or you own your wife, you know, that's something Quran says, that women, wives are the properties of men. So you imagine this absolutely puts a negative effect on relationship in the family. And this is not going to be giving a high esteem to women really, and full-heartedly feel to be a part of the family. It is so different when your wife and you are equal in the eyes of God, because the same hand has created them. And so that's why we see really that women are the most depressed really in Islamic society. And even in Saudi Arabia today, you see they do not have rights even for driving.
Yes.
And you know, even for voting, because they are you know, counted nothing really. And you imagine that in a family like that, you're growing children, and what they, will learn from you. So absolutely, it has a very negative effect on family in every matter, and it's not allowing people to be united in a godly way with each other. And unfortunately, it's just worldly. I do not count that as spiritual. I mean, how can you count it as spiritual that you can beat your wife?
Yes,
that's
yes.
not spiritual. That's worldly and fleshly selfishness. That if really that's the heart of God, I mean, why wives are not able to beat their husband? That means husbands do not do any mistake. They do not do any wrong things in their lives. And so we see that injustice has really made its root very strong in Islamic families, and especially in those Islamic families who are sincerely follow the footsteps of Muhammad and Islam, and it has affected them very, very much negatively.
Now, it's interesting to contrast Muhammad with the example of Jesus and the way he behaved and what that can mean for a Christian family. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
It's a big difference, Michael. It's just I was really amazed that for years I was taught that Islam has the best value, is the perfect religion, is the last religion to come and seal all of those imperfect religions before that, including Christianity. And I was amazed, I was shocked, I was fascinated by Christian values. Jesus says there is not any difference between you and your husband. There is no difference between you and your master. And there is no any difference between Jews and Greek. There is no, in today's language, if you want to speak that, there is no any difference between Jews and Muslims. That Quran calls Jews, asses, pigs, monkey, and Christians the same. And this is shame, really, that this doesn't make sense in the kingdom of Jesus. Jesus says God has created everybody, Jew, Muslim, Chinese, and American, Iranian, everybody with his beautiful hand, and everybody is carrying that value. You do not call one, less than other one. That's not an spiritual teaching. That cannot be the teaching of God. So this was why I was so amazed and fascinated. And even it gave me more logics and reason really to love Jesus and care what he said. There is no any difference really between Jews and Muslims. They are, shame. They are the shameful things really to humanity, even to Abraham. You see, Jews and Muslims, in particular Jews and Arabs, they are the children of Abraham.
That's right. Yeah.
You imagine you go to your grandpa and you say, your grandchildren are monkeys and donkeys, they are unclean people, but we are best than them. That breaks the heart of grandpa. Even a grandpa Muslim doesn't want to hear that from his own grandchildren. You see, these are unsocial things, they are break the heart of people. But Jesus came, says one husband, one wife. That's the real meaning of love. And a husband must love his wife as his own body, and vice versa. Wives need to love their husbands. The gospel says one husband and one wife, they come and become one with each other. They are not two anymore. They are united. And gospel is amazing and teaches about that. It says it reveals the secrets of unity of God. Husband and wife, they are united with each other. That resembles the unity of God, our unity with God. So these are the amazing things that you read from the words of Christ. It really amazed me. I said, my goodness, I wasted my life and I didn't know this. And I wished, I had opportunity even from my childhood. I could read different books. I could read Bible and Gospel and come and understand this wonderful, truths about relationship in the Bible.
They really make your heart sing, don't they? Because they're talking about what I see as justice,
Absolutely.
as truth, as peace. It's in the example of Jesus and the values of Jesus, we see an opportunity for justice, truth and peace.
Yes.
Going back to a Muslim family, if some members are more committed to Allah than others, what kinds of problems can that cause in an Islamic family?
Very big problem, Michael. You know, the Quran chapter 9 is the last chapter of the Quran. It is 9, it's not because it has come in turn as 9. The Quranic chapters are not in chronological order, and therefore longer chapters, generally speaking, they are coming first. Chapter 9 is the last chapter, is the, last part of, in other words, the perfect part of Allah's mission on earth, Muslims believe. And that chapter speaks about that. In chapter 9, verse 23 says, to children, even do not follow the guardianship of your father or brother if they love, infidelity more than faith. In other words, if they are not committed Muslims. It's speaking to little children to disregard the guardianship of their parents. You see, I mean, if in America or in Australia or in Europe, when you see talk about guardianship, that means those children who are 18 and under 18. But in Islam, the scenario is different. According to different traditions and cultures, the maturity for girls is 9, and that's the maximum. Even can be 7, because 7 is the age of marriage. And for boys, it's 12 or 14. So Quran is saying to younger boys, 14 or 12 or 9 years old girls or less than that, saying you do not follow the guardianship of your parent if he is not a committed Muslim. And this is a disaster in the family.
A lot of consequences that can happen to the children. Yes.
It really destroys the family. It breaks the heart of father. You imagine a mother, a father, they are spending all their life for their children, and then children are not mature. They haven't seen a lot of things to learn lesson from the society. All of a sudden, somebody comes and says, "You become rebellious rebellious to your parents."
Yes.
And this is really a chaotic result of Islamic values.
Yes. Daniel, you've shared with us so many things about discrimination and injustice and lack of truth and lack of peace. How can Islam be one of the fastest growing religions in the world when you've shared all these things with us?
Well, Islam is not a fast growing religion based on reason and logic, as I mentioned. Islam is by demography is coming number 1, because the families are big in Islamic families, and they are tending really to have big families. We know that there are other factors also in the world. Unfortunately, the world doesn't know Islam very well, and they think that the hospitality and the beauty of the Middle Eastern culture is Islamic culture. It is not. The Middle Eastern culture is way older than Islam, and people are hospitable. And many people in the Western societies are really confused, and they count it as Islamic culture. I gave you Islamic culture, the example from chapter 9 of the Quran. It's not at all hospitable. It says kill pagans, kill Christians and Jews, even kill your relatives who are not Muslims. So that's not an hospitable religion. It doesn't grow really by reason, and it's the major reason really is the demography that they are not following really family control, and it's becoming a big religion.
Thank you, Daniel, for sharing with us these insights, and I think it's a reminder that we need to keep searching for truth and seeking to understand the truth of a religion, and not just be persuaded by rapid growth. Thank you so much for joining with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
This has been Midnight Cry, and it's been great to have you with us for this episode. Thank you very much.